Welcome to this video where I'm going to explain all of the Hearthstone Battlegrounds terminology. So these are things that a lot of people use and words that are thrown around in Battlegrounds that are very important and that you basically need to understand if you want to get better at the game and talk about it. I got asked to make this video so many times by beginners on both Twitch and YouTube, so I hope this is helpful to some of you. And even if you're already like an advanced player or an intermediate, I'll try and go really deep into this so that maybe even you learn some new things. Starting off with APM, I use this a lot in YouTube titles, and every time I do I get people asking me what it means. So literally it means actions per minute. So how many actions you can do in a minute, how fast you are. APM is used to decide, for example, in Hogger comp, so you have infinite gold, how many things you can do in a turn. You're literally as strong based on how many cards you can cycle with the Hoggers, how many pirates you can play, and scale up your Salty Looter and use your Peggies. That's a good example of an APM comp, but of course APM can be used in many different situations. I've played APM Elemental. Sometimes you need high APM to close out a turn. Let's say you have 5 seconds left and you just realized the play that you gotta make. That you need to be really fast in order to do stuff. Some people have slower APM, it's something you can practice. So I hope this kind of explains what APM literally means and how it kind of fits into Battlegrounds as a game. Now we have RNG. I think most people know what this is because, I mean, you play Hearthstone, but it translates to random number generator or generation, whatever. It's just basically taking literally a random number. It's like a coin flip. Some fights are won by a 50-50, just pure RNG. It's just pure randomness. So RNG is just the randomness of a game and how lucky or unlucky you can be in certain situations. Now onto tempo. Tempo is a bit harder to explain properly because I think you can explain this in many different ways. So I'm going to explain what I identify as tempo, but I'm sure other people might try and give a different definition to this. So tempo is the strength of your board, I would say. If you make a tempo play, that means that you try and be strong for the turn on the board. If you can choose between, let's say, playing a Light Fang with 2 tribes, so it's total of 6/6 stats, right? A 2/2 body with +4/+4. Or you can play a Battlemaster which has 3 attack and let's say like 30 HP. The tempo play is Battlemaster because it's gonna make you a whole lot stronger for the turn and it is gonna be, well, just more tempo. So the relative strength that you put on the board compared to other plays that you could have made, I would define as tempo. So that's tempo plays, it's being strong, it's trying to minimize the damage that you take, and it is just mainly playing for stats, so playing for bigger numbers. Now the opposite of that is greed. So that would be taking the Light Fang over the Battlemaster because the Light Fang is less strong for the turn, but in the long run it's going to be better. You're going to find more tribes over like multiple turns. The scaling adds up to like what, +50/+50 or something. You can keep it around for quite a while. So greed is the opposite kind of tempo. Instead of just playing for max stats, playing to be strong and preserving your health, you do the opposite. You make plays that maybe sacrifice health, that sacrifice some stats on the board right now, but for a better future. If you play greedy, you try and play for better turns in 2, 3, or 4 turns, but weaker this turn and maybe next turn. So you're more future focused instead of present focused. Tempo is all about the now, being strong now, and the future you'll see what happens. Greed is the opposite. You focus about a strong future, and the now is probably going to be weak and you'll sacrifice some stuff. I think that's the best I can explain it, and I hope you understand. Greedy players, for example, are players that like to level a lot, try to hold triples in hand. They're going to take a lot of damage, but they get like an insane 6-drop or 5-drop, and then spike way harder than any tempo player could. Tempo player would triple earlier, stay down on Tavern tiers, and play a strong tempo composition to try and just get a top 4. Now on to high rolling. High rolling is what happens when you greed. So a high roll, I saw people describe it as getting really lucky, but I wouldn't necessarily say that. High roll is not about RNG, because you can set yourself up for a high roll. If you play greedy and you take a lot of damage and you set yourself up for a better future, then you can spike super hard. So high rolling is the act of just blowing up and getting really strong, either through luck because you hit like a key unit. Let's say you level to tier 5, triple into an early 6-drop, and that 6-drop is a Caligos, and then next time you find another Caligos, you have double Caligos. Sure, you were lucky on your triples and discovers, but you would never have been in that spot if you didn't take the greedy line anyway and stay down. So it's about setting yourself up for an insane future and getting rewarded for it. That is a high roll. Or maybe you don't even set yourself up for an insane future, but you find it accidentally, then you get lucky and then you high roll. Let's say you play tempo anyway, but you hit all of the best cards, all of the best hits, get super lucky. Sure, that could also identify as a high roll, but I think I would identify it as someone who takes proper greedy lines and gets rewarded for them, and who is therefore way stronger than the lobby and therefore is high rolling in the lobby compared to other players. The opposite is again low rolling, meaning you don't. You don't set yourself up to do crazy strong plays, and you also don't get rewarded. So let's say you level to tier 5, you triple twice, but you hit Zap and then maybe MarkMcKz. Those would not be great to find early on because they do pretty much nothing for you. Then you Lowrolled, and that was pure RNG though, sure. But you can also just decide to stay down, try and play tempo and not get rewarded for that either. Then you also Lowroll. So I guess Lowroll more than Highroll has a connotation of RNG to it. Like if I say I Lowroll, usually it is because of RNG. While with Highrolling, it's not always the case. Again, people could have different definitions of this. That, like there's no set definition that I could find on the internet or that people have settled on. But in general, this is how I would describe it. Another thing that I got asked a lot is what is a warrior curve, because I keep talking about it in my videos and streams. And warrior curve is also better known as the Chinese curve or the shiny curve, or it has a bunch of different names. This curve is the act of staying down on tier 1 until 7 gold and then double leveling, hopefully having some triples. Now I have made a leveling video or like 2 leveling videos in the past covering this curve. I also know Nina did an entire video on this leveling curve, which I'll also leave down below. It's one of the most used ones right now in this meta, but I'm sure it will stick around till the end of times. Next up, the Jeef curve is also called multiple things. It can be the Yaw curve, it can be whatever. It is just leveling on 5 golds to tier 2 and then on 6 gold to tier 3. Again, I have a leveling video covering that, but I thought it was worth it to clarify what the difference is, because some people still mix those up or don't know if they're the same curve or not. Then you have the 3 on 3 free. I get flamed a lot for saying it wrong. Free. Basically, it is the act of just going to tier 3 on turn 3. So you level every single turn until, well, turn 3. Of course, you also have the 4 on 4, which if you have a token, you could level again on turn 4 to tier 4. And that's it for leveling curves. I'm not going to explain all of them, but these are the ones that I got asked the most. And there's one composition that I want to cover, and that is Menagerie. For some reason, I get a lot of questions about that as well. It's just the same as like a pirate composition, a dragon comp, a demon comp. So it is a certain board state, and it is the board state of multiple units mixed together. That's why cards like Jug and Mug exist, and Lightfang. Those are cards that incentivize having multiple tribes on the board that get buffed. Another good key card is a Malganon that gets multiple adepts depending on how many tribes you have on the board. So that is Menagerie, just a composition while having multiple tribes instead of just playing one single tribe. Exodia, which I think is worth explaining as well, is a composition that is more combo oriented. Now people say everything is in Exodia these days. Exodia literally would be an unstoppable composition. Just you get this, you win. But over time, you know, there have been a lot of Exodia comps that, you know, can be beaten. Let's say Scallywag comp, which is just a bunch of Scallywag summoning with golden Khadgar, like golden Baron. It just goes almost infinite and seemed almost unbeatable. But by now people have figured out you can just zap it. You can play Acolytes or Void Lords. There's a lot of ways that you can try and beat this. But an Exodia comp is some sort of combo comp. Another example would be like a golden Ghoul with like golden bombs and then Kangaroos and Baron. So you resummon an entire board full of bombs, or like with Omega Buster. So just a very strong, almost unbeatable combo comp could identify as an Exodia, and that is what people would refer to if they talk about an Exodia composition. Now a more trendy word right now is milking, especially in this meta. A lot of people are talking about milk and milking cards, but essentially milking, kind of like with a cow, you try and extract as much value out of it as possible. Is that a good analogy? Anyway, you just try and get as much value out of a card as possible. I don't know if I need to explain value. It is just the returns that you get on something. So let's say you have a Lightfang and you want to milk it. You could keep it for 1 turn. You have 3 tribes, it gets you +6/+6, right? If you keep it for 3 turns, you milked 3 more turns or 2 more turns, and you get +18/+18 total. So the longer you keep it, the more you milk value out of that single card. Of course, Avenge right now with Dazzling Light, Spawn, or Witchwing, the longer you keep it, the more value you get in return, the more stats on your elementals, or the more free cards you get. So trying to milk is trying to get as many cards as possible over multiple turns, or setting up a perfect board state for it. That is milking, trying to get as much value out of any given card. Power leveling is the act of just leveling in spots where it is maybe risky or most people wouldn't level. So if I would say I'm gonna power level here, usually it's a turn where most people don't level, or you would stay down and just buy stuff, but you take the risk, the greedy line of just leveling, hoping to get a bigger payoff in the next couple turns. So that is just a power level compared to normal level. You just press the level button more aggressively. Tech cards are cards that are meant to either counter your opponent or just enhance your board. So usually you have like flex spots on the board, which are spots that are kind of empty. You have permanent units that you scale up that are really big, that are just, you know, part of your board. Then you have, you know, other cards that you can sell, like the Lightfang, like a brand, like whatever, or another empty spot where you play your buffs. And those you usually fill with tech cards to counter your opponents like Zap or Ghoul, or to just, you know, maybe make your board a little bit better with Selfless Hero, with a Spore. The tech cards are those final cards in the end that you usually slot in instead of just having empty spots there. And these are cards that you also don't really need to scale up, or that are not part of, like, really a core part of your composition. Baits is just shit that you shouldn't do. When you see a super early triple, sometimes it's bait because it's really awkward to take. You float money, you're weaker, it doesn't work out. Sometimes finding a card like, let's say, a Lightfang, but you have no tribes on the board, then it is bait. I keep using Lightfang as an example. I just love Lightfang. Let's look at Goldrin. Let's say you triple into Goldrin, but you have no beasts on the board. Then that is probably bait. You shouldn't take it if there's like a Kaligos next to it and you have a bunch of dragons. So bait is things that are tempting to take, maybe. That for me, that would be Hogger. Let's say I have no pirates on the board and I find a Hogger on tier 5. Maybe it's bait to take, maybe it's not. Who knows? Depends on the spot that I'm in. So it is always very nuanced, but usually it is a play that is tempting to make, but you shouldn't, because it's just actively bad. Really quickly, if you're new to the channel and you're enjoying the videos so far, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, to catch more gameplay or guides or whatever. And yeah, that's it. Let's move on to scams. So scamming is just getting lucky, kind of. Let's say you are like 80% favored in a fight, but you lost the 20%, then you got scammed, your opponent scammed you. I guess that's the most like obvious example. It is just getting bad luck or low rolling in a different package. I guess you also have scam compositions, which I mean is a whole different topic. It is basically compositions where you put like no effort in, or you don't even try, but you try and kind of scam your opponent out of a win. You try to bump your win rate or try and get lucky. Like, let's say you have nothing, you're just almost dead, and you fill your board with like 2 Spores, 2 Max Nas, Selfless, and Baron, trying to still cheese out a win. Let's talk about tokens. Those are, for now at least, 1-drops that get you an extra gold. Let's say Murloc Tidehunter and Tabbycat are the most common ones. They summon an extra body. So these are the 2 main tokens, because you literally just get an extra card on the board for free. So tokens are very powerful cards right now in the meta game, because heroes like Jandas and Hooktusk and Shudderwalk and Galliwix, they can all abuse that extra body and that extra gold to great extent. You also have Selemental, which works a little bit different as a token, since it doesn't summon an extra body immediately. But if you sell it, you do get extra body, so you also get the plus extra gold. And by definition, Swabby is sometimes also seen as a token, because it does save you 1 gold on your level. It's not 1 gold that you can redeem whenever, and it doesn't give you an extra body, but it is somewhat of a tokenish card. I guess you can also on higher tiers discuss that Tavern Tempest is a token, because it gets you another card in hand as well, but I've never seen anyone call that a token, so for now I'm just gonna stick with the idea of them being 1-drops. And value trade is where you have a card trade multiple times into other cards. Let's say you have a Greasebot on the board, which is a 3/6 stat line, and a Prophet of the Boar, which is a 3/3 stat line. So if they trade with each other, the Greasebot is gonna be a 3/3 still, and the Prophet is gonna be dead. So the Greasebot gets to trade again and gets to live. So the Greasebot here did a value trade onto the Prophet. And in simple terms, like, Battlegrounds is all just about value trading, trying to buff up your minions. That is the core concept of the game, making them bigger so they value trade with your opponents, so you win the fight. And then you have like Divine Shields that help out, tech cards, poison. But yeah, that's a core fundamental concept of Battlegrounds. Last one I want to mention is one that you don't hear too often anymore. A lot of top players used to use this term quite a lot, myself included. It's called EV, or expected value, which is something that also comes from poker, I think. I made an entire video on it a while ago, but it's pretty outdated, so real quick, it is the expected value that you can get out of a play, the kind of value that you get in return for buying a card. Let's say, am I going to use Lightfang again? Sure, let's say you take a Lightfang. If you have 3 tribes again, over 1 turn, your expected value on Lightfang is to get +6/+6, and it's a 2/2 body, so +8/+8 total. But if you plan on keeping it for 4 turns, your expected value is +24/+24. So that you can kind of see, is this 24/24 a better expected value than the Battlemaster right now, which is a 3, let's say 30, but you know, it's probably not going to stick around, or it's not going to buff up these units so well. and in the long run it's probably going to be worse. Expected value can also be how much health you save. Maybe if I go with a Lightfang play, I lose, let's say, 10 health. Is it 10 health worth the extra stats? A simpler example is in the early game. If you buy a Rockpool Hunter, you get a 2-3 Murloc, so your expected value is a 2-3 stat line that may be value trades. Well, if you take a Salamental, your expected value is a 2-2, but it also gives you an extra gold because you can sell it. Let's say you have a bomb in the shop, but you already have a bomb on the board. Then your expected value is another 2-2 that deals 4 damage, plus a pair that can potentially triple into a higher tier. So I think this is a very powerful concept to think about if you really want to up your Battlegrounds game. Instead of just looking at units for what they are, try and see all of the value that a single unit gets you. What is the potential in the long run, the short term? What is the, like, how much health am I going to win or lose with this? Is it better to just take the level? And that is kind of what sets apart really good players from people who are starting out. They see way more lines and way more possibilities that everything has to offer. Again, this comes with time, with practice, but EV, I think, is very powerful term that I thought you should know because I think it only helps you. And that is it for this video. Hope you found it helpful. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.